Hello and welcome to Hard Copy on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikulu. But for the next half hour, we'll be having a frank conversation on protests. Well, this month of independence has seen its fair share of protests and demonstrations across the country, championed by young Nigerians. The protests simultaneously across the country, from the nation's capital, Abuja, to Lagos, to the southwestern states, southeast states, south, and even some across the north. But the question is, what are their demands? What is the government doing? And how much impact has that had? We're joined on the program by someone who is not new to demonstrations in Nigeria. She's known for her defiance during the Bring Back Our Girls protest, which began in 2014. And most recently, she's seen as one of the leading voices of the NSAS protests. Aisha Yesufu is our guest on Hard Copy. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I know we may have pulled you out of an NSAS protest in the nation's capital, Abuja, so pardon us for that. But let me begin by asking you, seeing these protests over the past few days, how would you rate it? What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts on the protest is the fact that this is a protest unlike any we have ever seen before. In the words of Florence Ozo, she said, "This is a protest for survival." All the protests we've seen before have always been protests for empathy. We have the youth of Nigeria who are being killed, who are being maimed, who are being attacked, harassed all the time, coming out to make demands that this be put to an end. So they're fighting for a right to live in a country that has failed them, that has refused to give them enabling environment. And they're so determined because most of them, this is personal to them. And they feel that if they don't get this right, if they don't get to the point where the government actually understands where they're coming from and actually take action rather than mere words and mere rhetorics, that they're going to be worse off. They're going to be killed more. And most people, like some of us, are saying, oh, you know, why are the protesters there? Can't they see that they are being killed? But they are being killed anyway, even when they don't come out to protest. And I think the federal government, state governments, to look into this protest and understand that it's unlike any we have seen before. These are young people. They have resilience. They have intelligence. They are organic. They're coming together. They're working. They have a social media on their side. Remember, the media has been democratized, and they can reach each other from different places. So we need to be strategic. The government needs to be strategic and listen to them, eat the humble pie, meet with them, talk with them, and begin to put in action the things that they've said. It has gone beyond announcements. They want to see things being done.
Well, speaking of the government and announcement, I mean, you know that the government set up this presidential panel on the reform of SARS, and they issued a communique after a series of meetings. And I mean, they welcomed the dissolution of SARS, which is one of the main focal points for these protests that we have seen all over the nation. But the fourth point of that communique is the fact that they affirmed that the 5-point demands of the protesters and the NSAS movement are genuine concerns and will be addressed by the government. So in the light of government's response, and don't forget the police, the IGP announced the dissolution of SARS, the formation of SWAT. So in the light of the government's response, it appears as though the government has been shifting ground gradually. Do you still think there's any need for further protests?
Definitely. So let's look at the response. First of all, let's look at when the IGP talked about the dissolution of SARS. Police brutality did not end, and it continued. When the president made that announcement, people were actually killed in Lagos. Protesters were killed in Lagos. So you begin to see that the words and the actions, they are now matching. We have a culture of brutality in the Nigerian police. And so they felt that they would take it out on people. So it is one thing to tell the protesters that SARS has been disbanded, SARS has been ended, and then it is one thing for them to tell the policemen and women themselves that this has happened. Remember, this is not the first time time that SARS has been disbanded. This is not the first time that their name was changed from SARS to F-SARS. And then now what we have, initially they changed it to SWAT. They said they had formed a new team, and it's not a new team. SWAT has been there in the Nigerian police for a while now. So this is what leads to all this distrust that is going on. Now it is now tactical thing. But the most important thing, let's look at the issues one after the other. First and foremost is the fact that they say, release of all protesters, unconditional release of all protesters. Protesters, some are still being arrested, some are still in prison, they've not been released, and this is a major issue. Right now, let me ask, protesters have been killed, have been made. Has any policeman or woman been arrested or is being investigated, right, or this prosecution has started? We haven't seen any of that. All of them that have committed atrocities against the protesters, none of them has been arrested, none of them has been brought out. So you begin to wonder, where is that sincerity of purpose? These are major issues that are being talked about. Yes, in case of welfare, we saw some states have begun to put together sort of welfare for the victims of within this protest, the protesters, the families of the victims, those that have died, and all of that. And we saw a very worrying situation where when the governor of Lagos State went to see the president, and he was passing these demands of the protesters to him, and he talked about that, compensation and justice for the victims of the police brutality during this protest. The president sniggered. The president laughed it off. I mean, this is not a joke. They were talking about people dying, and it seems as if the government just think that as business as usual, they will form committee and then go about what they're doing and actually do nothing. These protesters are saying they don't want motion without movement. They actually want to see things on ground, and I tell you right now, there is really nothing on ground.
So do you trust this government?
The government hasn't put itself forth as the one that can be trusted, because over time, repeatedly, it has also always broken its promises and its word. And we have a government that its word, it's not its bond. But I think we are ready to see things on ground, and we'll take things as they are. And I think that's one of the things the protesters are demanding for, and we need to do this. Let me say something. Today, we've seen citizens, protesters have been attacked in Lagos, in front of the government house in Lagos. Yesterday, talks were brought in, talks were attacked protesters in Abuja under the supervision of police. And guess what? This is not the first time this is happening. It happened in 2014 during the Bring Back Our Girls campaign in May 2014. They were attacked by talks under the supervision of police. Just a few days ago, also, the military were brought in to attack the protesters at the National Assembly. Imagine violating the National Assembly. So with all of this, you can't blame anybody for not trusting the government, because indeed the government is not showing that it is sincere in its purpose. So people are looking for sincerity of purpose and truth, and so that we all get to work this thing together.
When you say the military was brought in to attack, it might come across as though you saw the brief or you saw the instruction that was given to the military for that particular mission. But, regarding the protest, the organization of the protest, it's something you have spoken about. I mean, I recall you did a video recently asking young people not to get distracted, that they haven't gotten to the goal yet. And I know there was some controversy around a meeting which you attended with some other young persons. You met with some business people, and that generated quite some controversy. So what exactly played out there?
Okay, so before I'll answer that question on the issue where you talked about whether the military were sent in, because I was attacked by military, but I was attacked by a soldier. He kicked me. One of the protesters ran at him to say, "Why are you hitting a woman?" I had to hold on at the protester. I said, "Don't go there because they're looking." So I know, I'm talking from experience. I'm not talking. So what happens? Military soldiers don't do anything without instruction. So when they came in there and they started hitting people, cocking their gun, it meant that they were sent in there to do that. And I'm feeling the pain right now. So coming back to the meeting that we had, right now looking back, I made the first mistake, which was I should have asked who are the people who are supposed to be at the meeting, because if I had known who are the people at the meeting, I wouldn't have joined. So I was expecting other protesters from different, across the nation, just coming together to have a Zoom meeting. But when I got in there, I saw there were quite different people. They call themselves Kakovid, there's Kakovid and some state governors there. And I was taken aback. I was like, okay, what's this? So we continued the conversation. And of course, they were like, oh, you need to step the protest. I was like, stop the protest. This is a protest of the people. You can't step down any protest. And I did say to them, I said, look, you shouldn't be having a meeting with us. You should be having a meeting with the president, because they were quite concerned about the economy being weak and all of that. And I said to them, look, the economy being weak is your concern. The young people that are on the streets protesting, their problem is that they want to leave. They are being killed. They are being taken out one after the other. They are being thrown away. They are being wasted. And they want a life to live. You're already living. You're thinking of wealth. They want to have a life. And at the end of the day, when I came out of the meeting, I did call the person and I said to him, look, if you had told me these are the people that I was meeting, I wouldn't go there to have a meeting. Because these are business leaders who are selfish, who get patronage from government, who have refused to call out the government, the wrongdoings of the government. Now it's affecting their business. They're coming out to talk. When it was affecting the lives of the people, they sat down where they were because the nairas were coming in, the dollars were coming in. They didn't care that citizens are being killed.
So you think it's important to have these business leaders?
It should be.
So you think it's important to have these business leaders and personalities speak up about this?
Absolutely. It is important to have everybody speak up, because what affects one person definitely affects us all.
But the question now,
protest, right from the beginning, if it was treated the way it should be, we won't still be here. We'd have gone on we'll continue with our lives. The young people will be off the street if their demands were met and they saw things being done. This is not a protest for just the young people. I think this is something for all Nigerians. We should make demands and ensure that, you know, we have a nation where citizens can thrive, where the Nigerian life will matter. Because right now, the Nigerian life doesn't matter. And at any time, you know, you see a policeman or woman, SARS or under that, telling you they will waste you and nothing will happen. That culture of brutality that is in the police and all of our security agents has to stop.
But do you think it's important for this agitation to have some form of structure, maybe a leader, or leaders across various areas, such that you can aggregate, you know, some of these demands and push it up? Because that's one of the challenge. Do you think it's important to have some leadership structure? I know time and again the protesters have said, well, we don't have a leader. There have been some people who have represented them at various meetings. But how important is leadership structure to ensuring that these things work?
Well, the thing is that I think I see most times, even from the government, they are harping on this term that, oh, they say they don't have leaders. Even when we went, why the soldiers, the military were beating us, that was the thing they kept saying, oh, you don't have leaders, so who is going to see who? Leadership can be organic. The fact that they are saying to you there are no leaders, everybody, what they're trying to say that we are first among equals here, and everybody is the same, and we are all speaking. But then there's also leadership within it, and that's the reason why you can see how organized they are. And the reason why they are saying they don't want leaders is the fact that we failed them. Repeatedly, we have not acted with integrity. We, the older generation, we have always sold them out. They believed in us. When they see how leadership, when we come at leadership, how we sell out and everything. So they are quite right. And I believe, and I'm myself included, that we should be ashamed of ourselves, the way we have made it in such a way that they see leadership as a bad thing. But even in the midst of them saying that there's no leadership, there is organization. They have structure. You see what they've already brought our 5-point agenda, right? Was it not presented to the authority? Was it not presented to government? That tells you indeed there is leadership. Within there's no leadership, there is leadership. It's just that it's not the kind of leadership that we are used to, where people now go into meeting. And I came out of that meeting that day, and the first tweet I did, immediately I came out of the meeting, I said, now I see why the young people say they don't want any leader, and it's a good thing that they don't have any leader that anybody can think that they can bring out and try to, you know, get them to sell out or any of that. So I think the most important thing instead of focusing on the fact that they're saying they don't have particular leaders, but we can see that every one of them is a leader. Our generation tend to have people where you have a leader and followers who are suppressed, are mentally abducted. But they're saying that they're lifting every one of them up to be a leader, first among equals. But in doing that, they're working as a team, they're coordinated, they're putting out their demands, they're working within the ambit of the law. Unfortunately, it's the government and the other security agents that are not working within the ambit of the law. So I would say right now, it's the government that is acting as if there's no leadership. The protesters we have there, the youth of Nigeria, they are actually so coordinated, and I tell you, they do that, have that leadership in place. The nation needs to get the leadership in place too.
Well, thank you for staying with us on the program. I recall there was a time you sort of took a break. You took a break from social media, and a lot of your followers kept wondering, is she tired of Nigeria? Has she given up on Nigeria? Or you're back? So what happened? Did you get tired? Was there some fatigue playing out there, and why?
Absolutely not. I didn't get tired, and by the grace of God, I will never get tired. On December 12, 2013, I made a pact between myself and God, and I said to God, I turned 40 on that day, and I said the first 40 years of my life, I gave it to myself. I grew up poor. I would go to school in the morning without breakfast, coming back not expecting lunch. Things were very hard for me, and I needed to work on my financial independence. And at 40, I had gotten that. And I said, the next 40 years, if God gives to me, I'm going to devote it to Nigeria. And about 4 months after that was when, before then, 2 months after that, the Buniyadi attack happened. And I would have loved to join when I saw the call being made where they did a protest march, morning march. I said to my husband, I would have joined that if I had known on time. 4 months later, Chibok happened, and I joined the Bring Back Our Girls movement, and Nigeria have seen me ever since. So for me, I've said that no matter what Nigeria throws at me, I'm never ever going to give up on Nigeria. I'm going to fight for the next generation the way I wish others had fought for me before I was born. If before I was born, the generation that were there had fought for a great Nigeria, I wouldn't be here doing this. And I always say that I will not be an irresponsible parent and leave this fight for my children. I would rather fight the fight so that my children will fight on more sophisticated things like the right of bees to have flowers for pollination. So I never did.
There are a lot of parents, really, right now, who are thinking, is it safe to allow my child to protest? Is it safe out there? What do I tell them? How do I begin to interface? But for you as a parent, would you allow your children go through this protest, and what would you be telling them?
I get asked that question a lot, and then sometimes people say, oh, where are your children? You've taken your children are schooling abroad, and you want other people's children to be on the streets. And I always say to them, where are your parents? I'm on the streets. The first thing is that my children have protested in Nigeria, in Abuja. My daughter started protesting at the age of 12. My son started protesting at the age of 15. But let me tell you something that I think I need to share. In 2014, if you remember, there was a day in the midst of all the Boko Haram attacks and all of that. There was a day in Abuja that they sent letters around that schools shouldn't open, that the terrorists said they were coming to attack. And that day, a lot of parents didn't bring their children to school. Some schools didn't even operate on that day. That day was a prize-giving day in my daughter's school. And, you know, we're talking about it. So I looked at my husband looked at me. I was like, what do we do? And our daughter said, she said, look, mommy, daddy, I have worked hard, and I'm going to get a prize on this, and I don't care. No terrorist is going to stop me. And I think then my daughter was 12? She was 12. And when she said that, we just looked at her. I couldn't stop her. Even though I was scared of the fact that what if the school is attacked, we still took her to school that day. And on that day, I dropped my daughter in school thinking that I might not come and pick, they might call me to come and pick bodies. But I know that I will not stop my daughter from living, because I will not allow those who want to truncate humanity to win and let her live in perpetual fear. So as parents, we are always afraid. But you know what is happening? Right now, parents are burying their children even when they haven't gone to protest. Parents are burying their children that SARS have killed. Parents are burying their children that police have killed. And so this is a major issue. And these children are coming out to say now, we don't want to be killed. I think as parents, we should be joining them on the streets and say, it is not just the youth who are just making this demand, but we as parents also, we are making demands because we are tired of burying our children. We want our children to be the ones to bury us.
Well, A couple of issues I would like to raise with you, but this next one, I mean, you've talked about the BBOG campaign time and again, as far back as 2014. This is 2020, 6 years after. What has become of the BBOG campaign? Is it still on? Have you given up?
Absolutely, we can't give up. It's still on. The BBOG campaign is still on. As long as there are 112 girls in captivity, 112 Chibok girls in captivity, as long as Leah Sharibu is in captivity, as long as Nigerians whom we do not know their names are in captivity, as long as Alice Ngada is in captivity, Grace Taka is in captivity, we can't give up. My daughter, when they did the 1,000 days of Chibok girls, she said, as long as Chibok girls are in captivity, we all are in captivity.
But do
we're
you
fighting
think
for Chibok girls? We're not
Right.
just fighting for girls. It's the fight for the soul of Nigeria. We're fighting for all of us. We're saying that our lives should matter as citizens.
Yeah.
That if
Now,
anything happens
specifically-
to us, the Nigerian government should care. And
Now,
one of the
specifically,
things I
speaking
need
about
people
the
to understand
government-
is that fight for Chibok girls.
Right.
Yeah.
Pardon
It's
me,
let just
specifically-
conclude on this. Fight for Chibok girls is not doing them a favor.
Right.
It's their right to be rescued as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Right. Specifically now, what do you think the government can do, especially about the names you have mentioned, the girls, that the government is not doing right now?
The government there's no feedback mechanism from the government. In the last 2-3 years, the government hasn't said anything to the parents, not a word to the families of those girls, that are Chibok girls and Leah Sharibu and others that are in captivity. What would it cost for the government to meet with the parents and say to them, this is what we're doing, this is how far we've gone? They've totally left the issue. They don't even talk about the issue. It's almost they feel irritated when they are reminded of the issue and at the fact that the Bring Back Our Girls movement up to today, 6 years after, we are still making those demands on them. So feedback mechanism is very important, and also for them to continue to look for our Chibok girls and ensure that they are brought back, because as long as you have them there, what you are simply telling the terrorists is the fact that you can come at any time and take away any of our citizens and nothing will be done about it. And that's not the way a government should go. A government must have empathy. A government must have a human face, and a government must be there for the people, because the primary responsibility of any government is the protection of lives and property, and any government that cannot protect the lives and properties of its citizens is not fit to be called the government.
Right. So this doesn't have any political inclination, especially with this recent protest. No political inclination, no foreign inclination to this. This is just Nigerian youth calling for the change which they have clamored for over the years.
Like I said earlier, this is a protest for survival for the youth. They are being killed. People are being, we were silent when they were being killed. We will see from time to time, they will bring us pictures of youth that were killed, and we do nothing. We didn't talk about, we didn't say whether there was political inclination that the police were killing our youth. We didn't ask whether there were foreign inclination when the police were killing our youth. Now that our youth are coming out to cry and say, please stop killing us, we are not telling them that there's political inclination, there's foreign inclination. Where is our empathy? Let's remember the father in Port Harcourt who was crying. I'm sure there was this viral video. If you've not watched it, go and look for it, wherever it is. This father said he lived 12 years in the north. Nothing happened to his children. He came back home. He came back to Port Harcourt. His child was killed. A 20-year-old was killed. Why was he killed? Simply because he said, I would not open my phone. My phone is my property. And guess what happened? He got 4 bullets in the body. That son was killed. The father that went through so much to train his child has been taken away. We did not ask that policeman or the Nigerian police for whether there is a foreign inclination or there is political inclination. It is now the youth are coming out to cry that they are tired of being killed, that we are saying all of this. Where is our empathy? We always want to put insinuations into this. They are fighting for their lives. Please, let's call out the government and say to the government, protect our children. Like I said before, our children should be the ones to bury us. We are not the ones that should be burying our children. And
Right.
It's enough, all the killings that have been going on. Right now, it needs to stop, and we need to focus on the perpetrators. The government and the security agents are the perpetrators. The protesters are the victims. And I know that we are a nation where we always victimize the victim again. We need to put an end to that and ask the perpetrators to stop.
Great place to anchor on this episode of the program, but I'd like to thank you so much for being as frank as possible on Hard Copy. It's an honor to have you on the program. I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
So whatever it is you have written on your placard, be it a placard on paper or in your heart, whatever legitimate demands you have for the government, its institutions at any level, or for anybody at that, don't be afraid to speak up. It's a democracy. But please be peaceful. Before we go on the program, if you would like to continue with this conversation or another, do send us a message at hardcopy@channelstv.com or tweet with @CTV Hardcopy. If you miss any episodes, do go to our website, channelstv.com, or listen to our podcasts on channelstv.com/podcasts/hardcopy. Thank you for watching.